Welcome to Bird Seeds. So today we have a special guest. I'm really excited to have this guest on. It's a guest I've known not since I was born, so pretty excited. So today we're going to welcome Kristen Franey. So Kristen Franey is my cousin. It is my mom's sister's daughter, and like I said, I've known her since I was born here. And we've had very different journeys, but I think there's a lot of parallels in the journey that we've both taken independently. And so I'm really excited to bring her on. She does a lot of motivational life coaching kind of things. I know you focus, I want to hear a little bit more about it because I want to dive deeper with you. I know you focus on like women-owned business, which I think is super awesome. So I'll hand it over to you. You can kind of give an introduction.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah. So thank you for saying that I do a lot of motivational stuff. I sort of feel like I'm just me doing my things and living my life and doing the best that I can to influence my circle. But I know, for people that are on this journey, a lot of times seeing someone who has been through the fire and can kind of put it into practice can be really motivational.
For
And
sure.
it's been recent since I'm very much an adult type person, but it's been fairly recent that our circles have crossed. Like you said, our paths were very different, and there's quite an age difference between us, so we weren't very close as younger cousins. And it's
Sure.
been really interesting, and especially since you've been doing the podcast and I've been listening, to really dig into how similar a lot of our ways of being and how we've come to be on our very different paths.
Exactly.
There's so much overlap, and there's so much that mindset and personal growth and personal development and how we do anything is how we do everything. And I love seeing that that's the journey that you've been on too. And I was very pleasantly surprised at how much everything kind of had some overlap. But
Yeah. A lot of
yeah.
synergy. They're different, but there's a lot of synergy in the way we think, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And like you said, I do tend primarily to focus on women-owned businesses. So I was in the corporate world for a very long time, doing the corporate thing and climbing the corporate career ladder. And when my job ended very unexpectedly, but turned out to be very pleasantly, I decided that I wanted to try something else. And I couldn't, in good faith, put myself back into a situation that had been really toxic for me and that I didn't
Yeah.
love. And I still had 25 years left of work. And I thought, I've still got 25 years left at least. I'm going to at least figure out a way to do something that I really enjoy doing. And so I took a lot of my business experience and my coaching experience and became a life coach.
Yep.
At the time, I found life coaching, I didn't find it difficult. I found finding clients very difficult for
Hmm.
life coaching.
Sure.
And it's sort of like the Tony Robbins-esque, change your mindset, change your life. But,
Yep.
very true, change your mindset, change your life.
Absolutely.
Um, but a lot of the people that I was looking to work with were not ready to make a significant investment in themselves. And so when I was able to marry up all of my business experience that I had for 25 years, plus my life coaching experience, that's when I landed on really feeling inspired to work with other women who are establishing their businesses,
Yep.
and people who are purpose driven. So one of the things that I really liked about what you've said in some of your previous podcasts as well is that, and knowing you and knowing Laura and the kids,
Yeah.
that it's family first, right? And you're designing your life in order to be able to support that as your values. And that's how I work with people, is identifying what's really important for them and how can they establish their business that supports what their values are. And so most of my clients are purpose driven or impact driven, or they're here to make a change or influence and inspire and impact other people in some way, but
Yeah.
they don't know how to go about doing that. So I help them kind of figure all that out.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to sit there and really get to your values, and I think that was a key word you use, values. We focus, I think, especially in this country, but I think bigger than that, we focus on goals. And I have a whole episode, goals versus values, and goals are good, they're necessary, but they get checked, and then what's left after it's checked, right?
Hmm.
So I want to make
Hmm.
more money. Cool, check, I did that. Now what? What do I do with the money? Like, so the value of I want to be financially free. I don't want to have to worry about money. That's the value. And making more money is a goal that I can check to get to accomplish that value. And when you really
Exactly.
define those values, everything you do is now in tune to that value. And if it's working towards that value, you're going to feel like the world's working in your favor. Everything's just coming easy. But as soon as you go against that value, it's going to feel like everything's hard, everything's difficult. Why is it's so tough? But
Exactly.
the key is defining those values, and that's hard to do. It's something I
It
still
is.
work on.
Yeah, and when I stopped working in corporate, that was one of the first things I did is establish my values because I thought that's what you did as a business person. All
Sure.
of the businesses I'd worked for had vision statements and values that were really clearly defined. None of the people that I was talking to in the entrepreneurial world had taken the time to do that, and I realized it was a huge disconnect.
Yeah.
Um, and what it does when you have those values, like you said, it reduces all of the friction, but sometimes it gets real hard, right? It's like it gets hard to just make more money. And when you're really clear on why you're making the more money, like what is the bigger purpose to making the more money? Like you said, it makes it easier, but it also, when it's hard, helps you get over the difficulties because
Yeah.
you realize that there's a bigger purpose. It kind of goes back to Simon Sinek and his, you start with why. It's the way our brains work. And when we have that bigger purpose that we're working towards, even when it's hard, it feels easier for
Exactly.
sure.
And I'm a big believer in anything that's worth doing is going to be difficult. If it was easy, everybody would do it, and therefore it's not worth it. Like it's got to be difficult,
Yeah.
and
My
difficult's not
trainer
bad.
reminds me of that all the time. If this was easy, everybody'd be out here. The park would be filled with people doing this, but you're the only one out here doing it because it's hard. But
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what sets us apart, right? I know that, with you and your success, that's a big part of what has set you apart from everybody else that's out there is not just what you do, but it's how you go about doing it and why you go about doing it. And both of those two things follow on from the why
Yeah. And
of
then
the
it,
doing thing.
that also results in the consistency of doing it. And I think that's also, often overlooked is, take my business in real estate. Like you have to be skilled at knowing how to talk to people and building rapport and creating relationships. Like if you can't do that, you're not going to be successful in real estate.
Mhm.
So you get that base level of competence, right? And then beyond that, it's being willing to do the work and doing it consistently. And I mean, I speak at a lot of different events, and I'm always happy to mastermind with anybody. And I mean, the episode I had with Mike Reiser, and he talked about, he would meet with these agents that were these mega agents when they first started. And he's like, and you don't mind telling me your secrets? And I go, no, because I know you're not going to do them. Because all you have to do is work really hard all the time.
That's
It's
it.
simple.
That's
Yeah,
the secret.
exactly.
That's the secret.
Exactly. I mean, you can take it into like weight loss. Like, okay, I want to lose 30 pounds. That'd be great. It's not going to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would be in shape.
Yep.
There's no magic pill.
Yeah.
You can
I
be
like.
targeted and you can be smart about it. And you can research and not just like, cut calories or whatever. Like you can be smart about it, but you still have to do the work consistently.
100%. Yeah, I like to say that it's not easy, but it's simple, right?
Yeah.
Like we can make it as complicated as we want it to be, but I mean, really, it doesn't have to be complicated. We can also make it as simple as we want it to be, but it's not always easy. It is consistent hard work, putting in the work even when you don't feel like it. It's when you're building your business, it's sometimes not taking a day off, and it's
Yeah.
working weekends, and it's working late nights, and it's showing up how you need to show up and when you need to show up for the people that need you.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, I when I stepped out of corporate and I saw all the shiny promises of, you can be a successful life coach overnight, making six figures and work from the beach and take your laptop with you wherever you go. And
Yeah.
it's not like that, right? Like
No, it's not.
it's not like you just wake up one day and have that lifestyle. You've got to put the work in consistently to do it in
Yeah.
order to get where you want to go, for sure.
Well, and I think what's super interesting and super relevant to me is something I'm now focusing on. Both in my private work, in my business work, et cetera, is actually now going the opposite of that to some extent and setting better boundaries. Because I have that drive that's nonstop that I can do better, I can do better, I can do better, I can do better. And then I wind up working too much and too hard that both, impact my health and impact my relationships. So I'm working on building those boundaries. I did a really good job in 2015. I was working before 2015. So I got in real estate in 2011. Before that, I owned music business, and I was working probably from 2007 to 2015. 80 hours was a light week, 7 days a week, all day long. And that's not including the phone calls and all that kind of stuff. And I had a point where I was actually sleep texting. I would wake up in the morning and I was text messages that I sent out overnight. They made sense. They were coherent and they were to clients. It's specific about real estate. 2 in the morning, I was sound asleep. And I made a big effort at that moment. And that's when I first got my business coach, and to leave the phone outside of the bedroom and not go to bed with it. I'm back to bringing it to bed, but I don't sleep text anymore. But then I started taking Sundays off, and I haven't worked a Sunday since 2016. Um, and that's my day that I'm with family or doing catching up on personal things or doing housework or just my phone never stops. There's no way away from my phone in my business, but I don't take appointments. And now
Mhm.
the kids are in sports, so like tonight I've got sports. I can't show houses, and I've staffed up to be able to do that. I have assistants that can cover a lot for me, but I'm really going to make the next leap into setting those boundaries to have a better life, and really the sort of the completeness between the personal and the business and the families and the relationship and the money and all that together into one package. And I think you said that earlier on when you're doing life coaching and you're working with, women doing businesses, you're not just structuring the business to be successful, you're structuring their lives to be successful.
100%. Yeah. And, a lot of the things we talk about with my clients is, you get to design your life the way you want it to look.
Yeah.
And we try to put those boundaries in place so that they're not getting to that level of burnout, because a lot of my people are coming to me where they've already been through that stage of burnout that you
Yeah.
had back then,
Yeah.
and they're afraid of getting back to it, right? They've
Correct.
already escaped the matrix like I did, right? And
Yeah.
now they're afraid of getting sucked back into it. And so we work pretty closely, or to set those boundaries ahead of time. Like, your business doesn't have to look like anybody else's business. Yes, you still
Exactly.
have to do the work, and yes, you have to be consistent, and yes, if you want to work 20 hours a week, it might take you twice as long as the person that's willing to work 40, and it's going to take them longer than the person that's willing to work 80. But ultimately, you get to design your life and your business the way you want it to look. And I think for a lot of my clients, and for me, that comes back to, what's important, and it's taken me longer to grow my business than I thought it would, because of all the shiny promises that are out there.
Sure.
um, but I also absolutely love my life, and I love that I get to take an afternoon off and go to the beach, or if a friend invites me for coffee, I can shift some things around pretty easily because there's enough bandwidth and leeway within my schedule.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I stepped out of, a really comfortable salary with an uncomfortable life
Right.
to flip it around the other way,
Exactly.
sometimes.
Exactly.
Um, but it's getting to design lives that we like. We're entrepreneurs so that we can work for ourselves, and ultimately we can make those rules. And I love that you're finding ways that you can do that now. It's as you scale up and you bring on staff and team that can take away a lot of the tasks and the things that you don't have to do, so that you can
Right.
still operate at your high level, because you're not the same person that you were when you first started in
No.
2007. You've learned so much, and now if you just continue doing the same thing, you're going to kind of hit a ceiling at some point. You probably appreciate being able to share all of the stuff that you've learned with other people and help them to grow. And it's, also gives you that space and freedom and time to do what you like to do, like watch the kids' sports.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's, the benefit and the beauty of being an entrepreneur is that you set your own schedule, right? And so you don't necessarily, you can say no, you can move things to where they work. The now downside of being an entrepreneur is you set your own schedule. There's no going home from it. And you're sort of like me, and you're addicted to the chase and the thrill and the, and frankly addicted to being successful and chasing that next success and checking that box. That can backfire, and that can mean you just take every appointment you could possibly touch. And I guess last 2 years I've gotten really, I'm not where I want to be, but I've made that my priority of like, is this worth doing, or can somebody else do this? I mean, I don't know if you know or not. I think I've mentioned on here or not, but I outsourced driving. I have an assistant who drives for me. I call him my gadget guy because he's drives, so I can be on the phone or the laptop doing work. He runs lock boxes or signs. He's also my showing agent. So if I'm out of town, or like tonight when I go to sports showing, he'll go show a house for me. And my clients are still going to get the prompt service. They're still going to get me doing the negotiation side of it. They've met before because he comes on showing appointments with me. So it's just sort of a way to outsource like the things that are still important to do. And I like doing a lot of them, but can be done by somebody else. That frees me up to now be present. And because the kids' sports are Wednesdays and Saturdays, and they have the same time for softball and baseball. So, Laura's amazing and it takes care of the kids all the time. She can't be in two places at once. It's literally impossible. So that's now there's no way around it. I'm going to their sports games and their
Hmm.
practices.
Hmm. I love the creativity that you brought into that you have a driver. Like, what? And my mom actually mentioned that to me. She's
That's
like,
awesome.
Joe has a driver now. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, that's fabulous. But I mean, I can relate. Like when I worked in Malaysia, I didn't have a car, and I mean, I was always stuck in traffic. And I used that time to do all of my calls to the stores and all of my emails. And
Hmm.
it's smart. Like, why sit in traffic when you can be using that time more productively?
Yeah.
And
And then
people
from
might
an
think, oh, it's expensive to invest, or you've got to pay somebody for that. But your time, that hour of yours, is more expensive than that hour of his.
yeah,
I would
and
venture to guess.
yeah, and from a psychological standpoint, I don't I love driving. Driving is one of my favorite things to do when there's nobody else near me.
When you get to drive like you're on the track.
Yes, one of my favorite things to do in the world. Driving in traffic is one of my least favorite things to do, and I have some road rage and some anger issues, and that will set my day in a different direction, and it's hard to come back from it. So if I don't, yes, I'll still get frustrated if I'm running late to an appointment, but I literally have no control now. I can't, like, even in traffic, I feel like I've lost control because I'm still driving and I can't get to where I want to get to because you're in my way. Oh, but I have no control. I'm not driving. I'm not doing anything. And it helps me stay more calm, which then makes the rest of my day better.
Hmm.
And Nick's awesome. So Nick came to me beginning of the year and said, "Hey, I love driving. I love doing all this stuff, but I want to do more. What can we do?" So he's going to school for marketing now. So he's learning marketing and he's keeping me accountable and like, hey, shoot more videos, or here's some topics to talk about on videos, and just making me do those things that I should be doing for marketing that I am not as consistent at. I'm consistent at doing what I know works. I'm not as consistent about the things that I don't know if they work. And so it's great. I mean, it's helped me grow my business. It's helped him grow his skill set, employment, et cetera, et cetera. It's awesome.
Hmm. Yeah, and super creative, and a
Yeah.
lot of people probably wouldn't think to do that.
Right.
They would just continue getting frustrated and continue showing up to meetings all frustrated that they've been stuck in traffic and the road rage. And you know, I
Yeah.
love too that he's bringing ideas to you for like, you should be doing more video.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you're like, oh, really?
Yeah. I know I
Okay,
should, but I
thanks.
don't like it.
I know nobody does. It's the
No,
craziest thing. I
exactly.
shouldn't say nobody. Very few people really enjoy doing video,
Right.
which is interesting. That's one of the things I work with my clients on. It's like how can you get to be comfortable being more visible,
Right.
whatever way that is. And it's interesting that that transcends for you too in such a totally different market, because over
Yeah.
here everybody, well, over here in my women-owned business land,
Yeah.
everybody's like, there's so much fear about just
Yeah.
showing up on camera or telling your story or being in front of people. And I think um, it's kind of where the magic happens. And
It is.
especially now when there's so much that's coming into play with like AI and chat GPT and all of those things, it's this type of connection and this type of
Mhm.
conversation and the realness that is going to allow people to see what you're really about. And ultimately, when you're in a service based business, when you're interacting with people, it's down to making and building a genuine connection and having that rapport.
Yeah.
And video is going to be where it's at in order
Right.
to stand apart from what you can generate in chat gpt, because that's actually pretty good, chat
It's
gpt.
insanely good. And it's unreal. It's scary. It's
It
terrifying,
is
actually.
scary. It is, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. But no, you're
Yeah.
spot on. I mean, that's been my business model since day one of like we can use technology to make things easier, but that technology can't replace me and my voice and my interactions. And if, in any industry, you rely on the technology to do that stuff for you, the next thing it's going to do is replace you because it's going to learn how to do more and more things. People are going to develop better and better technology. So, yeah, the best thing you can do with any client is get face to face with them, belly to
Hmm.
belly.
Hmm.
That's the best thing you can do. But you can't do that if you're marketing to people and you're trying to attract people to your business. Belly to belly is once they've already been attracted to your business, or you're attracting them in a another setting, at a restaurant or whatever. But if you're trying to then market to attract people to your business, yeah, you're spot on. Video is where it's at because they can see the smile, the glimmer in your eye, the tonality comes through, the hand gestures, all those things that you just can't even get on a voicemail or a text, and certainly not a text message.
Hmm. For
So
sure.
spot
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And everybody sounds the same, right? Like,
Yeah.
I found it really interesting going back and listening to a lot of your back catalog for this. I'm like, like what you're talking about and the message and your vision transcends, even though it's such a very different um, market. You're
Yeah.
talking to very different types of people, but it's all the same things. Build rapport, have conversations, lead with your values, set the boundaries, be
Yep.
curious about how you're doing your business and what's working and what's not working, and be insightful. And I think, it's been very interesting for me how much there is that transcends, because I think it can be easy to get caught up in
Yeah.
our small little worlds too. But it's
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I
same
mean,
game, different playground.
yeah, and you mentioned creativity, and that's something I pride myself on, as a musician, and bring that into my business. I mean, the fact that I'm now playing music again, and I have the studio set up that I'm recording this on, and in the background I've got guitars and stuff all over the place, and that's just inspiring my creativity in other places. So it's obviously inspiring my creativity in music, which is great, and that just feeds my happiness and gets frustration out, and there's a lot of therapeutic things in there. um but that creativity is also moving into other places, and it helps me. One of my strengths in business has always been a problem solver, solving the problem, and that's basically what I'm, a professional problem solver in real estate. But bringing that extra creativity to solving those problems, there are so many solutions out there that are right in front of us. We're just too busy and blinded by the noise to be able to like find those solutions. I got a couple things that I'm in the pipeline I'm working on that are just so obvious. It's super exciting because they're just super obvious answers to super obvious problems that nobody else has solved.
Nobody else has seen
Crazy.
it yet. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes,
It's
you're like,
exactly. And it's
why
just
did we not know this?
opening up the mind and opening and stop entering into a situation with your preconceived notions of how it's going to be the outcome. Walk into the situation going, what can I do? Where,
Mm,
what is the landscape here? What are
mhm,
those elements and those variables? So where can we find connections where those things make sense? And then where are they different? And then what can we do to bridge that gap on the difference
mhm.
at the end of the
Yeah.
day?
Yeah, I like that. That's just about leading with curiosity and, like
Yeah,
you said, not having a preconceived idea of the outcome. Just what are we going to learn from this, and how can we make it better?
exactly.
Are you playing, like, are you doing gigs and stuff lately?
No, I really don't have much desire to get back out to gigging. I mean, I
Mm,
would for like here and there. Um, they're just late nights. Last band I was in that was like playing, I guess second to last band I was in that was playing, it was called the Federal Hillbillies, which I still love that name. It was like country, southern rock, and it was a cover band. We had originals, but mostly cover band. But we would play a lot in DC, and the gigs would be from like 9 to 1 in the morning, and then it's all our own gear, so you're not done loading out till 2. It's in DC. I get home at 3, and that's a Friday night. Saturday, I still got to go show houses at 9, and then once we had Aubrey, it's like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work anymore.
yeah.
Um, So I play here and there, but I really just like to write and record. Most musicians hate the recording studio. I've always loved it because I get to hear things in a different way. So the actual part of tracking your parts can be stressful because it's permanent. So like you went back to video, and I want to tie this two together. So you went video, and why a lot of people don't like video, it's because they don't want to see themselves on camera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a big part of it. We don't ever look the way we think we look. And it's sometimes a shocker, just like hearing yourself on a voicemail on your device. It sounds different in your head than it does when it's coming out on a speaker.
Yep.
And same thing when you see yourself. But for me, my avoidance of it is the permanency of it. Like I can't walk back from what I said if it's recorded, like it's documented. So if I say something stupid or completely incorrect, it's out there forever and I can't do anything about it. I can certainly go back and say, hey, my bad, I was wrong here, but it's still out there. Once I've published it, it's there. Um, so the same kind of thing comes with recording, like tracking your part. You can know your part all day long. It's still the permanency of this is the way this will live forevermore. And you can't go back and fix it at some point. But the part I love about it is once that's out of the way and I've tracked my parts, I love adding all the other things to the song, the things that most non-musicians will never hear in a recording, but it's there and it does complete it and it accentuates and brings things out. Like I did a song the other day and I had a really good friend come over who's doing a lot of recording. Said, hey, I think this mix sounds pretty good. What do you think? And he goes, it's really good. The guitar and bass are a little muddy together. I was like, okay, yeah, I could hear that. Let me go in and EQ it. He goes, no, can I play your guitar and record a little part? I said, sure. And he recorded this really high part over top. It's really low in the mix, but somehow adding that depth to the high separated the guitar and the bass. And it just added another frequency. And those things, they're crystal clear. And we didn't touch the guitar or the bass. So it's pretty fun to kind of get into that stuff.
Yeah, that, and I have zero musical skill. That did not come via our mom's lineages and
Yeah, right.
genetics for sure. Um, but that's so interesting and so curious to hear that you can make that type of a little nuanced shift and have such a big impact on the
Yeah.
overall outcome.
Yeah. I mean, I think mixing music is such a great parallel to just anything in life. Like it's the balance between all the pieces. It's notching out their own sonic space. So, when I first started recording music, I would get the kick drum to sound the best way I could, and the snare drum to sound the best it could, et cetera, et cetera. The bass to sound as best as it could, the guitar as best it could. Then you blend all those together, and they're all in the same frequency band, and they're all muddy. And you can't make out it in each individual one. So
Mhm.
I'll start with that because I want the best starting tone, and then I'll go through and I'll start notching so that they have their own space in the frequency band. That's where they live. And that creates that sonic difference between them. It creates the clarity between the parts. And then again, making sure that you're not too heavy on the lows or too heavy on the highs and the mids, and really making sure that you've got the whole sonic frequency covered in something. And I think that parallels into life in general. If you're just so focused on one thing and you've not carved out space for the other aspects of your life, it's going to be muddy. It's not going to be clear and easy and clean. It's going to be muddy because you're going to be out of balance
Yeah, that is an amazing parallel. I
for
love
sure.
how you brought those together. But yeah, that just sums it
Yeah.
right up.
And this is
Yeah.
why I love doing this because I had never made that parallel before. That just came out like very organically in this conversation of like, well, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. That does parallel right to life.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And the big light bulb moment I had there and the parallel that comes in is for so many of the people that I work with. I mean, let's be real. Like what I do is not unique. I am not the only person that does this, right? Tony
Sure.
Robbins, let's be real. He is not the only person that does what he does.
Exactly.
But it's that nuance. It's that little bit that makes, Tony Robbins stand out, right? It's
Right.
what his unique sonic thing is. And it's for
Hmm.
me, it's my unique sonic space that I hold. And it's each of those little nuanced bits that come in that really resonate because
Yeah.
something could have all the same instruments and be tweaked a certain way and really resonate with one person listening to it
Hmm.
and tweaked a different way and resonate with a totally different person. Um,
Exactly.
and it's not that one is necessarily, you could probably say one's better than the other, but they could. It's
Sure.
just that they're different sounds and they
Yeah.
resonate with different people, even though they started with the same base.
Exactly. Well,
It's not
and on that note, and I want you to, I know you got some time here, we don't have much time here, but I want you to give like a little background on you and where you've been, because you have such a unique accent to your voice, and I know the story of how that comes about. And but that's one of those things we talked about Sonic. Like that's the thing that just your voice alone, the tonality, the accent, the pronunciation sets you apart. And that can, if you hide from it, you're going to sound, you're going to lack confidence and nobody's going to listen to you. But if you own it and you run with it, which obviously you do, that's the thing that's just going to get somebody's attention to be like, I need to listen because this is different than anything I've ever heard. So
Mm.
help our audience understand your accent because it is very unique.
Yeah, it's funny being back in the States now. I feel like I've lost a lot of my accent, but then I talk to people and they remind me that maybe I haven't. So,
Well, it's less
I
than it was when you first came back, but it's still there for sure.
yeah, still here. Okay. It was funny. I was talking to somebody the other day and I couldn't remember the word if we said parking lot or car park here. And she was from Australia and I asked her what was correct. She's like, girl, I have no idea. I'm like, okay, great. So
Parking lot.
parking lot, yeah. I was like the car parking place where we put the cars. I don't know. Um,
That's funny.
so yeah, so I left the States in 2000 and
It's-
moved to London, and I
And so
was
you
in
were from
London
the Baltimore area where I am
from the
originally, and then
Baltimore area.
moved to
Yeah,
London. Yep.
moved to London. Um, then after London, I moved to Dubai. And
Okay.
I was in Dubai for 9 years, but most of the folks in Dubai that I hung out with were English or Scottish.
Okay.
So still speaking a very English type accent.
Hmm.
Um, and then I moved to Malaysia, where most of the people I worked with spoke Malaysian, not not even English. So
Yeah.
that was an experience. And then I did a couple of years in Bali before
Yeah.
I came back here. And again, most of the people that I was hanging out with or that were around there were Australian or English. There were not as many American folks over there.
Gotcha.
Then I came back to the States on a whim
Yeah.
3 years ago, and I'm still here and decided to set down roots and call
Yep.
this home.
And you're on
But
the
on
West
the
Coast now.
on the West Coast now, yes. So I've
Yeah.
left the East Coast. I tried East Coast and then it got to be November and winter was coming and I said, I am not
I'm out.
ready for this.
It's funny.
So I borrowed your dad's car and drove across
Yep.
the country.
That's
And then I
hilarious.
got here and had to ask him if I could borrow it a little longer.
Yeah.
And then I bought it.
That's
And
awesome.
I still drive his little car. I give him updates every now and then on
Yeah.
how it's doing because he's very concerned for the
Oh, of
car.
course. Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. His
Yeah.
cars are they're part of him.
Yeah.
They're extensions of him for sure.
They sure it's like, yeah, like
Yeah.
other kids. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, so now I'm here in LA and we finally are starting to get some summer and springtime. We've had 2 sunny days in a row. It's kind of
Nice.
been crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so this is where I am and staying in Santa Monica for the near future.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you can kind of hear all those different aspects in, where you've been in your voice. And again, if you want to make a really awesome analogy, like we are where we've been. And like that just translates right to your accents because not only like just the tonality of your voice that you get and then the way you've learned the words, continuing to learn those things. When I came back, I've been in the Baltimore area for almost the entire time, minus 5 years in Chicago. And I came back from Chicago and I think that's mostly gone out of my voice now, but I'll still say roof or care every once in a while or pop or whatever. And like, but it just, I don't know. It's like, it just happens. You don't consciously go, I'm going to start speaking like these other people. It just starts sort of wearing off on you and it just becomes part of your vernacular, part of your accent. And, it will wear off over time, but a lot of it's still there. It's just such a great analogy of like, it's the story of you and where you've been.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's interesting. And it definitely has given me a unique lens, I think,
Yeah.
having lived in so many different cultures and met so many people and worked with so many people, but being able to see the commonalities, like
Yeah.
despite all of those cultures and, the multiple nationalities of people that I worked with, there are some true human facts
Yeah.
that we all have, regardless of what our background is, but we all have a very unique lens of how we look at and then engage with the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's something I wish that I had more of is all the different avenues and viewpoints I've kind of always just dug so deep in the things I've done that I wind up in that lane. And part of doing this is, it is real estate focused because that's my world, but I try very hard not to make it real estate limited. And these things
Mhm,
do parallel across other industries and other avenues. So,
mhm.
well, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I always end these with a couple questions. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions, put you on the spot. Um, but thank you again so much for being a part of this. I really appreciate it. Um,
Thanks for having me. This has
yeah,
been, yeah, I mean, this has been so much fun. Yeah, I
and
love it.
real quick, let everybody know where they can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So the best way is on Instagram. My website is permanently in development, but
Hmm.
Instagram I update pretty frequently. And that's Kristen.Franey. Super easy.
Awesome, awesome, and I'll put a link in it in the show notes and everything as well. All right, so a couple questions for you. What is your favorite movie or TV show? Favorite thing on film?
Oh boy. They change. The first thing
Yeah.
that comes to mind as favorite movie is Grease.
Okay.
I don't know. My
Always a
favorite
good one.
TV show, yeah, my because I sing along.
Yeah.
And my favorite TV show has got right now it's Ted Lasso. Like
Yeah. It's
absolutely loving Ted Lasso.
so good.
Hmm.
And Shrinking, which just got picked up again, which was on right after that one. I don't know if you watched that one or not, but that one's awesome as well.
Yeah, I keep saying I'm going to
You should. You
add it
need
to
to.
my. I
It's
think it's on my
hilarious.
list. So
It's
yeah, I
hilarious.
will.
It's some of the most subtle humor I've ever seen. Like there's
Awesome.
on top humor, and then there's the subtle humor below it that's just hilarious.
Yeah, I like smart TV.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I
Mhm,
like smart
mhm.
things in general.
Smart things, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say smart movie, but I mean I like Grease, so I can't
Yeah. Dumb
argue
has
about
its
it.
place to sort of stretch your mind up a little bit. We just
Yeah,
saw Super Mario Brothers in the theater. We took the kids. Hilarious, by the way. Absolutely funny. It was really, really
yeah,
good.
yeah, I can imagine.
All right. Favorite music, song, artist, live performance, anything in the music world. What would be your favorite?
Oh boy, oh boy. Lately I've really been diving into Salt, out of London,
Okay.
SAULT.
Okay.
Um,
Not familiar.
yeah, they are, I don't know, they've just got a really unique sound. Um, I don't even know how to categorize it. And they put out, but I learned about it kind of late, so I'm having to find like various bootleg
Okay.
ways of listening. But they put out like exclusive albums, like however, like several albums that they launched all on the same day. But
That's
you
cool.
had to pre-subscribe or pre-purchase them, and they were only available for a limited time. And I'm like desperate to figure out how and where I can listen to these songs. So I'm a little bit
Interesting.
obsessed with finding these right now. So I'd have to say yeah, that's and again, they're very smart and unique
Hmm.
and different to others. But I'm also really liking Jungle right now. And
Okay.
Jungle, they're coming to play here in London or in
Okay.
London in Santa Barbara
Okay. What kind
soon. So I'm
of what
excited.
genre of music for both?
I don't even know how to classify Salt. Um, and Jungle, I don't know. I
Okay.
have no idea how to class. They're sort of like soul
Okay.
led, funk
Okay.
kind of
Yeah.
music. Let's go with that.
Okay. I like it.
Hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Probably wrong, but we're gonna go with it.
Oh, I'll go with it. I'll listen to it and I'll let you know what I think. My favorite artist is the Avett Brothers. We've seen them like 13 times. We're seeing them 7 more times this summer. We'll be at 20 by the end of the summer, which is
Oh
awesome.
wow.
Going to Red Rocks to
Mhm.
see them, which is like a bucket list item. And they're
Amazing.
kind of that genre bending. Like they are a folk band. If like you had to put a category, they're folk, but they've got aspects of classical, bluegrass, punk, rock. They're awesome and they're incredible
Hmm.
live.
Hmm.
And
Amazing.
on that note, Rick Rubin is their producer, and I was listening to. He was a guest on Armchair Expert with Dak Shepard on their Spotify exclusive episodes, and so Rick Rubin was on there and talking about just his production in general and his book, which I own. I haven't read yet, and it's just like to talk about these moments that happen. And there's a documentary on the Avett Brothers that's totally worth watching. And they talk about like this moment where Rick Rubin and the band, this performance they get out of it, and just his philosophies in general and creation. It's super interesting. He's a
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
cool guy.
I was gonna ask you if you'd read Rick Rubin's book. I listened to him on the Huberman podcast,
Yeah,
and man, it's like he's just so wickedly smart and so much
is.
more depth than I had any awareness of, even though you know that he's done a shit ton.
Exactly.
You
Oh, you're
know,
fine.
like once you hear all the stuff he's really done and how he's approached his creative process, it's just
Yeah.
mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on my next book to read. So
Hmm.
excited for it.
Hmm.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. I hope the listeners got a lot out of it. I certainly did. This is why I do it. I just being in the moment and forcing myself to slow down and focus on things. I think is super important because my general reaction is I don't slow down. I go to the next thing. It's really nice to take a breath and slow down.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure to share that experience with you. This has been really fun and enjoyable, and I appreciate your time and that you've
Absolutely. Likewise.
slowed down. Yeah. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Excellent. Well, thanks for listening. This has been Birdseeds. Take care.